Hello everyone, my name is Lindsay Schmidt. Today is July 13th, 2025, and I'm making this for Juvenile Justice Administrations. So our first question was, using your own words, using OJJDP information, what is meant by the upper age of jurisdiction? So the upper age of jurisdiction refers to the maximum age before reaching adulthood. In most states, as seen here, we can see that it's 17. In 5 states, it's 16. And if you scroll down, you can see which 5 states it is on the map. The second part of the question was, what is the variation across the country? So as we can see, we have Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, Missouri, and Texas as our 5 states that have the maximum age of a juvenile as 16 rather than 17. And then the third part of the question was, before looking this up, did you know this information about the variation? I did not know this. I thought all 50 states were actually age 17. I didn't know that we had 5 states that were considered 16 as the maximum age, so I found that quite surprising. And then, what is the federal definition of a juvenile? So according to the federal definition of a juvenile is an individual who has not attained their 18th birthday, which I thought was surprising considering 5 states can consider 16. Our next question we were asked is, who is the primary referring source of juveniles to juvenile court? So in my opinion, the primary referring source for juveniles to juvenile court is law enforcement officers. If we go to our case flow diagram, we can see right here, law enforcement referrals accounted for 82% of all delinquency cases referred to juvenile court in 2019. If you scroll up, you can see right here, law enforcement. That's where it's mostly starting in our case to flow diagram. The second part of this question was, what proportion does this source refer to? So this is referring to juveniles in America. Our third question was, to pick 6 topics from the OJJDP Juvenile Corrections FAQ, summarize and use your own words. So here, back arrow. So our first topic was, how many youth are held in residential placement? Answer. And as you can see, 27,587 youth were held in residential placement facilities on October 26, 2022. If you scroll down on the table, you can see it starts at 1997 and goes all the way up to 2022. We don't have any reports for 2023 and beyond. But as you can see, it's gotten a lot lower since 1997. We've dropped significantly, which is very good. Our second topic is, how old are the majority of youth in residential placement? So we'll hit the back arrow again. Answer. Forgot to load. So according to the table, there were 7,036 17-year-olds in residential placement on October 27th, 2021, more than any other age group. I did find this surprising. I thought it was going to be 16-year-olds because that is when juveniles start driving and that's when a lot of them get their little freedom. But I guess 17 does make sense because it's right before they become adults, so a lot of them are trying to do what they can before it goes on their permanent record. There's not very many with 12 and under, only 349, which is not bad at all. 13 goes up to 923. At 14, there's 2,220. And then 15, we jump to 4,246. At 16, there's 6,181. 17, 7,036. So between 16 and 17, there's not too much of a difference. And then with 18 to 20, we have 3,993. I'm surprised that 18 to 20 isn't quite up there with 16 and 17, but All right, and then for topic number 3, race and ethnicity profile of youth in residential placement. And then we'll scroll down here. So 42% of the youth accounted for were African American. And then if you scroll down here, we can see it per race. So we have white, black, Hispanic, American, Indian, Asian, and then more than one race. And we can look at all of the types of crime. So for status offenses, which are just offenses that are only relevant to minors, so if an adult committed it, it wouldn't be a crime. We have some pretty low numbers here. So let's see, 55% of white youth committed status offenses and 28% of African American youth committed status offenses. So not too high. And then if you go down here, this is very important. The term youth refers to people under 21. So while we think that youth might be 18 and under or 17 and under, according to each state, it is actually under 21 for these tables. And then for our fourth topic, it's going to be, does the race and ethnicity profile of youth in residential placement vary by offense and sex? Wrong one. So race and ethnicity profile of youth in residential placement. This is the one I was just on. Hang on just 1 second. Sorry about that. Here we go. I'm sorry. How does the type of offense resulting in placement vary by sex? Answer. Go. Oh, here we go. And then 2021 is the most recent year that they have, so I'm just going to hit search and submit for this. Well, whenever this loads, we'll be able to see per sex, male and female, who's held in residential placement. Try and reload. Here we go. So as expected, most times males do lead crime more than females, but there are some crimes in youths where females actually do commit more crimes than male. For example, if we scroll down here, simple assault is higher for females than it is males. We've got 18% there and only 6% there. And then if you scroll down again, you can also see that in drugs, females also lead this more than men as well. The short answer, females were more likely than males to be held for technical violations or status offenses. For topic number 5 is, does the offense profile of detained youth in residential placement vary by state? I chose to specifically look at Tennessee and Florida on this while looking at person crime. So Tennessee's got 61%, and then Florida had 38%. I found this kind of a little shocking that Tennessee was a little bit higher than Florida. If you scroll up, you can also change what type of offense we're looking at. So then if we go to property crime while this loads, you can scroll down again. And as you can see, in some states, they haven't had any. So Maine, none, or none reported, as I should say, such as North Dakota as well. But in states such as Kansas, there was 15%, which is not too high. We'll go back again, and then for topic number 6 was, does the offense profile of committed youth in residential placement vary by state? I was surprised with a lot of the results in these states, such as Washington and Oregon, having such high percentages. Washington was 78% and Oregon was 68%. Those are not the states that I thought would be leading yet. I was considering more like New York, Florida, California, states where other crimes are more high. So I was a little bit surprised with these results. But as you can see, you can also click between the different types of crime. So if you go to property crime, and we scroll down, changes our results a little bit. It's where Florida is more leading rather than Washington. But even North Carolina with 45%, I find a little surprising. Same with Oklahoma and Iowa. Found it very surprising with a lot of these results. So those were my 6 topics. And then for our last question, it's a couple different parts. The first part was asked, what was the CJRP? So if we go up here, there's a search bar, and we can search up CJRP. So and then we'll go down here. So the CJRP is going to be the Census of Juveniles in Residential Placement. This gets more of individual data. So it's going to be a survey given out to juvenile detention facilities, and they are asked to describe each youth that they have individually. And then the second one we were asked to describe was the JFRC. Go here and also search up JFRC. So the JFRC is the Juvenile Residential Facility Census. So this is more of a collective data about the operations of the facility rather than individual data about the youth offenders. They're both surveys given to juvenile facilities. However, this one is more over the actual facility, while the juvenile census is more over the individuals. And then if we go here, we can kind of compare these numbers. So right here, I found this very interesting. Of youth held for an offense in residential placement in 2019, 96% of them were held for delinquency offenses and 4% were held for status offenses. So again, status offenses are those offenses that only apply to minors and not adults, but I did find this very interesting. And then right here, we can see this is going to be for 2019 statistics, but in 2019, youth older than age 17 males and white youth comprised a larger share of the committed population than the detained placement population. So I found that very interesting just looking at these numbers. So 19% under 15 were detained, but only 12% were committed. And then looking at this didn't surprise me as much, 84% being male and 16% being female didn't surprise me too much. The proportions were very surprising. I found it surprising that 26% and 23%, those are very close. So white people and Hispanic people, youth, being equal in crime was very surprising to me just because there are a lot more white youth than there are Hispanic youth. So I felt like that was a little bit disproportionate.